Imagine checking your bank account and finding numbers that look great, but the money isn't really there. Sounds unreal, right? Yet some of the world's biggest companies pulled off exactly that. And the clues? They were hidden in plain sight. In our earlier videos, we saw how red flags show up in income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow statements. Now let's go on a global journey from Germany to Italy, the US to China, India to Japan, to uncover 6 of the biggest accounting scandals of all time. Different countries, different tricks, but the same lesson: red flags never lie. Wirecard started in the late 1990s as a small payments processor. By the 2010s, it was one of Germany's most celebrated fintech companies, and even joined the DAX index, replacing Commerzbank. Investors trusted it like a European PayPal, but the company's reported billions in Asian bank accounts didn't exist. The red flags included cash balances that didn't match operating cash flow, complex offshore subsidiaries, and auditors who couldn't confirm the numbers. When auditors finally pushed, Wirecard filed for insolvency in 2020, one of Europe's largest corporate collapses. It was like seeing a vault overflowing with cash and then opening it to find nothing but air. Remember, if cash doesn't flow like reported, it's a red flag. But fake cash wasn't unique to Germany. Italy had its own billion-euro illusion. Parmalat was Italy's dairy giant, expanding across Europe, Latin America, and the US. Its founder, Callisto Tanzi, was hailed as a national business hero, but the company invented a 4 billion euros balance that didn't exist while its debt kept climbing. Red flags included cash reserves inconsistent with debt, bloated inventories and receivables, and sudden unexplained jumps in other assets. The scandal eventually wiped out thousands of investors' savings. Imagine showing your friends a full fridge of milk, but it's just empty cartons stacked inside. That's what Parmalat did with its bank accounts. Huge debt paired with fake assets is always dangerous. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, another corporate giant was also bending the rules. WorldCom was America's second-largest telecom company during the dot-com boom, admired for its steady earnings, but these profits were inflated by capitalizing billions in routine expenses instead of recording them as costs. The red flags were unusually low expenses compared to peers, abnormally smooth profits, and inflated capital expenditures. This accounting trick hid the company's financial problems until it collapsed in 2002. With losses exceeding $11 billion, the largest U.S. bankruptcy at the time. Think of it like putting your everyday grocery bills on your mortgage to pretend you're richer than you are. WorldCom turned expenses into assets to make profits look smooth. Always keep in mind that expenses can't just disappear on a balance sheet. And just when investors thought they'd seen every trick in the book, a new fraud emerged, half a world away, in the unlikeliest of places: your local coffee shop. Founded in 2017, Luckin Coffee aimed to overtake Starbucks in China, opening thousands of stores and going public within 2 years. Much of its reported revenue was fabricated. Red flags included explosive revenue growth without matching cash flow, marketing spend and store economics that didn't add up, and whistleblower reports. On paper, the company seemed unstoppable. In reality, the growth was built on fake numbers. It was like a cafe bragging about selling endless cups of coffee, except most of those receipts were printed from thin air. Revenue without cash is a story, not a business. But China wasn't alone. Just a decade earlier, India had faced its own corporate shock, this time in the world of information technology. In 2009, Satyam Computer Services, one of India's biggest IT firms, was celebrated worldwide for its outsourcing and software services. But its chairman was faking over $1 billion in profits and cash balances. The red flags? Cash that didn't generate matching interest income, profit margins far higher than peers, and large deals with companies linked to the founder's family. When the truth came out, Satyam's stock collapsed overnight, shaking confidence in India's corporate governance. Picture a student showing top grades every semester, but when the report card is checked, half the marks were self-written. That was Satyam's profits. Extraordinary profits deserve extraordinary scrutiny. And not far from India, in Japan, another corporate giant was hiding something very different: losses buried for decades behind glossy acquisitions. In 2011, Olympus, famous for its cameras and medical equipment, admitted it had hidden over $1.7 billion in investment losses. How? By disguising them through shady acquisitions and massive consulting fees that made no sense. The red flags included overpriced acquisitions, excessive advisory fees, and financial results that looked strangely steady even in tough markets. When a new CEO exposed the cover-up, the scandal became one of Japan's biggest corporate embarrassments. It's like buying an expensive camera lens only to discover someone painted over all the scratches to hide the damage. Olympus buried its losses in overpriced deals. Wirecard, fake cash; Parmalat, hidden debt; WorldCom, expenses disguised as assets; Luckin Coffee, revenues that never existed; Satyam, profits and cash that weren't real; Olympus, losses buried for years. Different countries, different tricks. But the warning signs were always there. Cash flows that didn't match profits, numbers that looked too smooth, assets that didn't add up. Their financial statements were sending warnings all along. If investors and analysts had looked closer, many of these red flags could have been spotted early. The lesson? Don't stop at headline profits. Look deeper, compare with peers, and question what doesn't make sense. Remember, financial statements can tell a story, but only if you read between the lines.